Hello, third graders. Let's get started with our read aloud today. So, the title of our read aloud is Cold Blooded Scaly Vertebrates. All right. So, we're going to be seeing, if you can see, we have an alligator here, a snake here, and a turtle. So, we're going to be talking about those scaly vertebrates, those cold blooded scaly vertebrates. So, as we get started, we want to go over what we will do today. We're going to determine the meaning of unknown words in a text because that happens all the time when we're reading or when the teacher's reading. You may hear a word or see a word that you don't know what it means, and that's okay. That happens to everybody. But we want to be able to solve that problem and figure out the meaning of those words as we're reading. Next, you're going to write a short reflection on being a herpetologist. You will find out what that means also. And you are going to determine the meaning of words formed with re or pre when they're added to a root word. So you're going to have some language as well today. All right, so vocabulary that you're going to be hearing in today's read aloud. The first one is calcified. This means something is hardened, especially by deposits of the mineral known as calcium salts. So calcified. Go ahead and say calcified. Good. So something has hardened because of the mineral calcium salts. Next, we have sensitive. So this is able to feel something very quickly or intensely. So if you think this could be someone saying, oh, I'm very sensitive, or it could also be how we touch, right? Sometimes our teeth are really sensitive. If we eat ice cream or if we drink something really cold, sometimes our teeth can be sensitive or our skin. Different things can be sensitive. Next is venomous. Say venomous. Good. So we have our snake here, right? That's one of the first things that come to my mind when I think of venomous or venom. So this is something having or producing poisonous fluid. So, right, we know venom or is poison or poisonous. It is not good. We don't want venom or poison around us. So venomous, having or producing poisonous fluid. Next is reptile. So this is a cold-blooded animal with tough, scaly skin that uses its surrounding to control its body temperature. All right, so we've talked about some reptiles before when we were discussing vertebrates and invertebrates, but now we're really going to be talking about them in this chapter. So they're cold-blooded, their skin is tough and scaly, and they use its surrounding to control its body temperature. So maybe we'll find out some more information about that, how they do that. Now, I want you, if you have paper, buy you paper and a pencil, that'd be great. If not, you can just think to yourself, what have you learned thus far in animal classification unit? So we started this unit 2 on September 17th, so that seems like kind of a while ago now. But we started this unit 2 all about animal classification. So what have you learned so far? I know for myself, I have learned so many things about vertebrates and invertebrates. I've learned about the different groupings, the different classifications, especially when it comes to insects. There has been so much information we've learned about. So if you need to pause this video here to do a quick write or to think to yourself, that's fine. And then push play whenever you are ready. Okay, so now I want to talk a bit about those context clues. When we come to a word, when we're reading, or if our teacher or somebody else is reading a story to us and we don't know what a word means. Okay, so I want you to just think to yourself right now, when you're reading a book or a passage or on test, wherever, and you come across a word that you don't know what it means, what do you do? Okay, just think to yourself, what do you do? So do you just keep reading and, just keep on going? Do you ask somebody, right? Do you ask if a sibling's there, the teacher, student sitting next to you, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa? Who do you ask? Do you ask somebody? If not, that's okay, but do you? Or then do you look it up in the dictionary? And maybe dictionary is a little bit dated. We use them in school, but I know if there's something I don't know, even just facts or details or a word I hear in a TV show, I always Google it. And I'm like, what does that mean? So do you look it up in a dictionary or maybe do you Google that word? Right? So just thinking to yourself, do you do any of these things? Do you do something else? Right? If there's a word that you don't know. Any of these are fine answers, even if you said yes or no. This is just getting you to think, okay, how do I already solve that problem? So then we can work towards continuing to solve that problem. Okay, so here are some reading strategies for those tricky words. So if there's a picture, making sure we're looking at the picture. Also, with nonfiction, there usually will be a caption with pictures or photographs. So reading that caption also to help us understand the picture. What makes sense? So if you're reading a word in a sentence and it's not making sense, first off, are you reading that word correctly? Because that may be what's throwing you off in the sentence and why you don't understand. So thinking to yourself, okay, did that sentence make sense how I read it? And then look at the beginning letter sound. So really making sure we're pausing at that word, thinking, okay, am I sounding this out correctly? Let me, really understand what I'm reading first. So looking at the beginning letter sound, thinking, okay, breaking this word down into chunks, into sounds that I do know so that I can read it correctly and then I can understand it. And then, like I just said, look for chunks that you know. If you're able to chunk that word into sounds or into blends that you know how to read every single time, then that will help you sound that word out, make sure you're saying it correctly, and then we can do strategies to figure out the meaning. Which here are some context clue strategies. So the first one is glossary. So if you have the whole nonfiction book or text, you can always look in the back of the book. Remember that glossary is a nonfiction text feature. Okay, they're going to be in nonfiction books. So if it's a bolded word, it will be in the glossary. Okay, so reading the sentences before or after it. So sometimes the author gives clues in the sentence before, in the sentence below, things like that. So you're going to have to really look around that sentence where you found the tricky word because the author does give clues. So look at the sentences around it. Then signal words and punctuation. So be looking, okay, is this coming at the end of a sentence? Is it part of what someone's saying? Is it part of a fact or detail? Does it have numbers with it? Right? They said called, blank is or blank are, commas. So those are some things that can help you. Okay, if there's a comma, maybe the author gave me an example right after that word. Okay, and then prefixes and suffixes. Okay, so prefixes, become at the beginning and suffixes come at the end of the word. So if you're able to, know those prefixes and suffixes, that can help you understand what that root word is, saying. Okay, so these are some strategies to start getting used to, start thinking about while you're starting to read this week. Okay, so during this read aloud, if you have a paper and pencil or a sticky note with you or anything, that would be great. I want you to kind of stop and think and jot when I'm going to give us pauses throughout the read aloud to write down a word that you didn't know. So while I'm reading, if you were like, what was that word that she said? I didn't understand it. I don't know what it means. Then I'm going to give you a chance to pause and write that down so that we can figure out the meaning of that word. Okay? Okay, so if this kind of helps, I'm going to show you an example of what you can do. So if my unknown word is aquatic, go ahead and say aquatic. Good, aquatic. So I'm going to be looking into clues in the text. I'm going to be using some of those reading strategies. I'm going to make sure I'm saying the word right. I'm going to be looking at sentences around that sentence that I found that word in. Okay, and then I'm going to make predictions using the information I already know in my head, background knowledge about what I'm reading, and then what the text is telling me, that new information. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to make my own educated guess about what aquatic means. So I may have found on page 81, it says Anna is a very good swimmer. Okay, so she's a good swimmer. She goes swimming. She knows how to do strokes. She knows how to float. Okay, so then my prediction may be that aquatic has something to do with water, right? She's swimming, so that maybe means she's in water, having something to do with water. That word aquatic means having something to do with water. So this is kind of an example. If you want to make this chart, that's fine. If you just want to write it down and write down the word and write down your predictions, that would be great also, just as a way to start practicing using those context clues. Okay, now we are going to go into our read aloud. Okay. Excellent job. So if you ever need to pause the video also, feel free to do that while I'm reading if you need to write down other words. I know you can't see the screen perfectly, but it is just going to have to be the best that it is. Okay, so this is Chapter 10, Reptiles, Cold-Blooded Scaly Vertebrates. Hello, boys and girls. As you can see, Anna Anaconda is our starring place for today's lesson. She is a green anaconda, one of the largest snakes in the world. When she unwinds, she is as long as 6 of you, stretched head to toe across the room, and she weighs about 500 pounds. That's more than about 8 of you put together. Anna Anaconda belongs to a group of animals that shares a lot of the same characteristics as the amphibians you learned about last time. Who knows the name of the group used by taxonomists to classify snakes? Yes, snakes are reptiles. Reptiles include crocodiles, alligators, lizards, turtles, and tortoises. But right now I want you to focus on one reptile only, Anna. It's no secret she has a very high opinion of herself. She was quite fond of telling me so when I visited Peru. She thinks she is rather pretty, and I quite agree. In spite of her heavy body, Anna is a very good swimmer. Unlike some of her reptilian relatives, she is an aquatic snake, preferring swamps and rivers to the land. Snakes often have a bad reputation. Some snakes are poisonous, releasing poisonous liquid called venom when they bite. Anna's teeth are actually quite small, and she is not venomous, so you need not to worry about that. However, some people fear anacondas because they are members of a family of snakes called constrictors. Does anyone know what that means? Constrictors catch and kill their prey by coiling or wrapping around to prey and squeezing them very tightly. Anacondas' jaws open so wide that they can swallow animals whole. Fish, caiman, even jaguars and small deer. The anaconda's powerful muscles crush the bones of its prey as it constricts. Once swallowed, the anaconda slowly digests its meal. Uh-oh, some of you look fearful. Don't worry, you're safe. Anacondas don't live where you live in North America. You'll find them far, far away in the continent of South America. That's where I met Anna. Anna was sure to tell me that as far as she knows, there is no documented record of an anaconda ever killing a man, woman, or child. She and all anacondas are nocturnal animals, and they hunt at night, eating frogs, toads, birds, fish, and turtles. She doesn't have to hunt very often because one animal will satisfy her appetite for a long time. Well, that's a lot of information about Anna's characteristics. By the way, which scientists classify her as belonging to the animal class called reptiles or reptilia? Anna and other reptiles share some common characteristic with amphibians. Many scientists believe reptiles evolved from amphibians. Reptiles are all vertebrates because they all have backbones, and they are all cold-blooded because their internal temperatures change with their surroundings. Most reptiles can adjust their body temperatures, in basking in the sun to stay warm or by hiding under a rock to stay cool. Just like amphibians, reptiles live on land in water. However, these two groups do, of course, have their differences. Amphibians depend on water to stay alive much more so than reptiles. Amphibians' thin, wet, slimy skin needs moisture to absorb oxygen from the air. But reptile skin is waterproof. Unlike toads and salamanders, Anna and other reptiles do not breathe through their skin, which is hard, dry, and scaly. They use only their lungs to breathe air, which means they are able to withstand very harsh, dry weather conditions under which amphibians would not be able to survive. Of course, because they have lungs, this also means that reptiles cannot stay underwater very long without coming to the surface to breathe. Amphibians usually spend part of their lives entirely in water, but this is not true of reptiles as a group. Whereas amphibians begin life with gills, reptiles are born with lungs and are never dependent upon gills for breathing. Remember how different baby tadpoles look from adult toads? This is not the case for reptiles. Baby reptiles usually look a lot like their parents. They do not undergo metamorphosis the way amphibians do. Okay, I'm going to pause there and I want you to think. Did you hear any words that you did not know the meaning of? You didn't know the definition of? I know that was a lot. I know I heard a couple words. I heard that word aquatic that I showed the example of. I know we heard, vertebrates, cold-blooded, poisonous, venomous, characteristics, classify. There may have been other words that you didn't know. So if you need to pause this video right now to go ahead and jot down maybe one or two words that you didn't know, take that time and then go ahead and push play whenever you are ready. Okay, let's get started. Let's take a look at some of the animals that belong to the animal group classified as reptiles. These include lizards, geckos, iguanas, and chameleons. Unlike snakes, most lizards have 4 legs. Chameleons have a keen sense of sight and very long tongues. Their brilliant colors, all shades of pink, blue, red, orange, turquoise, and green, help them camouflage when they come face to face with their enemies. Earth's largest living lizard is the Komodo dragon. It can grow to be 10 feet long and may weigh as much as 150 pounds. These giant island carnivores eat animals as large as goats, pigs, and deer. Saltwater crocodiles are the largest reptiles on Earth, some weighing up to 1 ton. Looking like very large lizards, crocodiles make their homes in tropical climates and are often seen floating like logs in the water with only their nostril, eyes, and ears showing. Like Anna, they are nocturnal hunters, hunting at night. Crocodiles have the most powerful bite in the entire animal kingdom and are fierce hunters, living off fish and small mammals. Some live to be more than 100 years old. Alligators resemble crocodiles, but they are usually less aggressive or boldly forceful and live in freshwater habitats. Can you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? Alligators usually have a wide, rounded, U-shaped snout, and crocodiles tend to have longer, more pointed V-shaped noses. So you can see the pictures here, okay? This is our alligator and our crocodile. And our caption here, our text feature caption, says alligator and crocodile. Alligator, crocodile. Excellent. Okay, while we're reading this next page, I want you to be listening for words that you maybe don't know the meaning of. Be thinking of those predictions. Can you use the pictures? Can you pause the video and, be thinking of sentences that I said before or after to help you understand the meaning of a word? Look at all these reptiles side by side. Chameleons, Komodo dragons, crocodiles, and alligators. What do you notice about their skin? Is it rough or smooth? Does it look thick or thin? Remember when I mentioned that reptile skin is waterproof and that it is hard, thick, and scaly? Their type of scaly skin protects them from overheating, and because of their skin is waterproof, it keeps water inside their bodies. Because reptile skin is very sensitive to or easily affected by temperature, it becomes hot or cold very quickly when exposed to sun or shade. Like many amphibians, some reptiles shed their skin. Many lizards and snakes shed their skin several times a year as they grow. Snakes do not eat their shed skin the way amphibians do. Turtles and tortoises are the only reptiles with bony shell parts of their skeleton. Their backbones are actually fused to their shells. These shells may be flat or domed. Turtles have softer shells so that they can swim faster, but land-dwelling tortoises need hard, leathery shells to protect them from predators. Their legs vary in appearance depending upon where they live as well. Sea turtles have oar-shaped flippers for moving through water effectively. Many turtles have claws which help them dig, and pond turtles also have webs between their claws to effectively maneuver or move through water. Land tortoises like giant Galapagos have huge column-shaped legs with claws. These claws help them dig into the ground to move across it. Some turtle species live for more than a century. That's a very long time indeed. Body coverings are an important difference between amphibians and reptiles. Another thing that sets the two groups apart is their eggs. Remember the picture that showed strands of thousands of soft eggs that Tabitha Toad laid in the pond? Most reptiles lay far fewer eggs, and they lay their eggs in nests on land. Membranes, or soft outer coverings, that provide protection and also help to hold in necessary water for eggs to grow, usually coat the inside of reptilian eggs. In most reptile species, the eggs are also covered in leathery calcified shells. Ooh, that's the word calcified from vocabulary words. A few snakes and lizards give birth to fully formed, live young instead of laying eggs. The garter snake is a snake that is right here in North America, is one of those exceptions to the rule. So is the Solomon Islands snake, a lizard whose habitat is near the continent of Australia. Like amphibians, reptiles live all over the world. They prefer hot, low areas like rainforests, prairies, deserts, and oceans, but they can be found everywhere except near the cold South Pole. If you are as fascinated as I am with reptiles and amphibians, you may want to think about becoming a herpetologist. Yes, indeed. Herpetologist is the given name to a scientist who specializes in herpetology. They study certain crawling animals, specifically reptiles and amphibians. With more than 5,600 species of lizards alone, that should keep you busy for a lifetime. So you're going to have a writing activity below this video that you're going to describe what it would be like if you were a herpetologist, if you were to study reptiles and amphibians. So that's what a herpetologist is. They study reptiles and amphibians. Excellent. Okay, I want to go back to our questions to go over some things. So our first question is, how is the waterproof scaly skin helpful to reptiles? How is their scaly skin helpful to them? So if we remember, it keeps their water in and it keeps them from overheating and it protects them. Good. Our next question is, what major characteristics represent animals in the group called reptiles? So just thinking about reptiles, what did we learn about reptiles? What characteristics can we use to describe reptiles? Think to ourselves. So if we remember, this chapter told us that reptiles are cold-blooded, they're vertebrates, they're covered in scales or bony plates, they usually lay eggs, and they have lungs. So those are characteristics we would use to describe reptiles. And our last question is, compare and contrast a crocodile and an alligator. So there were about 2 pages that focused on crocodiles and alligators. How could we compare and contrast them? Remember, to compare means what do 2 things have in common? What do they have that's the same or similar? And to contrast means what do they have that's different? So if we think what they both have the same, they both have hard, scaly skin, but alligators prefer fresh water, and they have wide, rounded, U-shaped snout. And another difference is crocodiles prefer salt water and tend to have longer, more pointed V-shaped noses. Awesome. So thank you for watching this video. There will be an activity and the writing journal below this video, and thank you for watching.